Hello, welcome to Positively Ernest. I'm Gary Takesian, your guide as we delve into the timeless wisdom of Dr. Ernest Holmes, founder of the Science of Mind philosophy. Now, in the past episodes of Positively Ernest, I've attempted to highlight various aspects of Dr. Holmes' teachings, and then look at how we might apply them to improving our daily lives. Starting with this episode, and for the next few, I'd like to step back and talk about science of mind itself. Where does it come from? What does it teach? And why do I believe it's worth studying? All right, so here we go. This is part one. What is science of mind, and where did it come from? But first, I want to start with a disclaimer. Science of mind is not the same, nor is it in any way affiliated with Scientology, which is sometimes known as the church Tom Cruise goes to. I guess because they both start with the word science, that we get that asked quite often. So now that we've cleared that up, let's get back to what is science of mind. We begin, as we often do, with a quote from Dr. Holmes, who once said, "Science of mind is the correlation of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the revelations of religion applied to human needs and the aspirations of humankind." It's a powerful statement that emphasizes the essence of this spiritual teaching. Now, Dr. Holmes lived from 1887 to 1960, and from childhood on, he was known as a voracious reader. Though he was raised in a Christian household, his insatiable curiosity led him to explore a wide range of spiritual and intellectual disciplines. Among them, his growing interest in Eastern philosophies and the emerging scientific discoveries of his time. Through his studies and his personal experience, Holmes began to develop a unique understanding of the human mind and its relationship to the divine. He realized that the principles of science, philosophy, and religion could be harmonized to create a practical path to spiritual growth and fulfillment. His journey led him to a profound revelation that the truths he sought were interconnected, forming a unified understanding of life and the universe. He began to see a connection between the seemingly disparate worlds of science and spirituality, and through his work, he formed a bridge between the head and the heart. Now, his first two books, Creative Mind and later Creative Mind and Success, both were published in 1919. They were essentially short introductions to his new philosophical thinking, and they laid the groundwork for his seminal work, The Science of Mind and Spirit, first published in 1926, and then completely revised and expanded to its present form in 1938. In 1927, Holmes founded the Institute of Religious Science in Los Angeles. This marked the birth of a movement that would inspire millions around the world. Religious Science was the name originally intended for the organization, with the name Science of Mind applied to his philosophy. Over the years, though, they both have become used interchangeably. From the very beginning, Holmes never intended to start a church based on his philosophy. However, as Science of Mind grew in popularity, the voices of his followers grew louder in their desire for a church of their own. Thus was born the Church of Religious Science. Now, fast forward to the early 2000s, as more and more people grew disenchanted with organized religion and began to favor less dogmatic forms of spirituality, the organization dropped the religious science name in favor of Centers for Spiritual Living. Now, at the core of Science of Mind is the belief that mind is the creative force in our lives. This means that we have the power to shape our experiences through our thoughts, beliefs, and intentions. Now, you might wonder, why haven't you heard more about science of mind in everyday life? Well, to answer that, consider that science of mind was founded in the early years of the 20th century, and that makes science of mind relatively new when it's compared to the world's other major religions. And it follows then that the number of folks raised in the science of mind tradition over the last 100 years would be comparatively few. And on top of that, science of mind traditionally does not proselytize. You will not likely see a science of mind minister or practitioner preaching on a street corner to those passing by. Most folks who find the science of mind tend to do so when they are seeking something more satisfying spiritually. It's like the old saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Now, one of the attractions of science of mind is the lack of fear-based compliance. Science of mind makes no demands that we follow the teachings to the letter or risk suffering dire consequences if we don't. Other faith traditions will use what I think of as the carrot and stick approach. You're loved and welcomed only as long as you comply with the beliefs, and if not, beware. Rules upon rules. Now, we need look no further than the Old Testament books of the Bible and how many admonishments there were that began with, "Thou shalt not," and they're usually followed by prescribed punishments. Well, you won't find anything like that in Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes believed that there is a kernel of truth in all spiritual traditions, and therefore we welcome speakers from any spiritual path. But we don't practice blaming or shaming as a means of keeping people in line. We believe that the only thing that remotely approaches sin is wrong thinking, and we'll get into that more in future episodes. And that's where our teaching reminds us that we can change our thinking to make substantial changes in our lives. Now, unlike many other spiritual traditions, Science of Mind has no ancient or sacred texts, no spiritual gurus. Those of us who follow Science of Mind have nothing to confess, promise, or renounce. There are no initiations or secret handshakes. And to his credit, Ernest Holmes maintained that Science of Mind should remain what he called open at the top, meaning that no final chapter has been or likely will be written, and therefore this teaching should continue to welcome new understandings of human development. In our Science of Mind promotional literature, you'll often find the catchphrase, "Science of Mind, a philosophy, a way of life." This teaching offers us a way of understanding the world around us, while giving us the spiritual tools to create the life that we desire. Well, that does it for this episode of Positively Ernest. As always, please leave your comments or suggestions below. I'd love to hear from you. And join me next time when we will look at what Science of Mind teaches in part 2 of this series, What is Science of Mind? Thanks for joining us for this episode of Positively Ernest from Vida Spiritual Learning Center. If you found this meaningful, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment, question, or suggestion below. And for more information, you can visit our website at vidaslc.org, where you can also make a tax-deductible contribution to support our free programming. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so you can be notified of future programs. And thanks. We'll see you next time as we are Positively Ernest.